Hello, everyone. This is Felicia Bender, the practical numerologist, with your numerology forecast for the personal year for May. So, before we get off and running, if you are new to numerology and you don't know your personal year number, if you have no clue what that is, please take just a moment. Either go to feliciabender.com, my website, and click on monthly forecast. There's a calculator there, a descriptor of what the personal year is. You can also very quickly and simply go to the description box below, and there is the calculation for the very easy calculation for the personal year number there. So, with that said, the reason I bring this up is not to spend time chattering at you, and yet it really is because this forecast is based on your personal year number, not on your life path number. So, those are two entirely different things in numerology. And so, I want to make sure that you are at the right place at the right time listening to the correct forecast. Personal year, not the life path number. So, if you are in a 9 personal year, May is a number 5 personal month for you. So the personal year that you're in is the end of the cycle, that 9 personal year, and that is all year long. That is what you're working with all year long. Now, the personal month, where we base these forecasts or where I create these forecasts, are these points of destination that you get to stop off at for these 4-week chunks of time during each month. And so that you get to experience something a little bit different, some energy that is going to build and flow into your year, right? And it's really cool to figure out what that is. And that's what these forecasts are based on. So, this is a month to step into new levels of freedom and shake off any unwanted restrictions. That is what May holds for you with that 5 personal month. I'm going to circle back around just real quick and offer a reminder about the key elements or the themes that you are working with all year long in your 9 personal years. So I do like to describe the personal year as knowing the theme to your party. So it's much more fun that way, right? And I really do. I'm a visual person, so I actually do envision it, and I get kind of a kick sometimes out of this of someone going to the door of a party, and it would be a good movie, actually, probably, wouldn't it? Going in and then you have to stay at that party for an entire year. It's like, oh my God. So wouldn't you, in that situation, which is kind of the situation we're all in when we meet and greet a year, when we think it's just the same old thing, right? And it isn't. We're like, what is going on? Like, what did I miss? Did I miss the memo? Well, yes, we did. We missed the memo. So to go back to the party theme, it's like, wouldn't you want to know if it's a baby shower, maybe a birthday party, bachelorette party, memorial service? That would be a whole different vibe for the year, right? Drinking party with charades, whatever it is. So it's one of those things where numerology can actually give you an idea, give you a framework, give you some pointers, so that you do not show up at the wrong party wearing the wrong outfit all year long. And so that is why I do these forecasts. It's funny to even call them a forecast because they're not forecasting anything. They're just revealing what the numerological energy that you can expect to experience. And so that's what it's all about. So for you in your 9 personal year, a reminder here, we're going to condense it. We could talk a lot about it, but we're going to condense it here. The key themes for the 9 personal year: it is the end of a cycle. It is closure, right? It is wrapping things up. It's preparation for a new chapter to begin. The new chapter is not beginning yet. I have to remind you, especially as we're creep into May, that you've got the whole year. So pace yourself in many ways. So it's about surrendering to the inevitable that just let it go, let it go, let it go. I've been wont to say that it's like last year was like you were reaching for things and doing and going after it. This year is about standing still, being being with all that you are and all that you've created, and then seeing what comes to you, right, and what passes by you. So it's less a matter of reaching out, of grabbing, of grasping, of effort than it is about allowance and allowing what is meant to come and stay, and allowing what is meant to leave. So it is all about letting go, surrendering, and letting things that need to exit make their exit in order to make room for new beginnings to take place, which will happen next year. So the awkward thing in a nine personal year is that you get to sit with the in the liminal space, in this space where you've cleared something out and yet nothing is really coming in to fill it. And that's there's nothing more nerve-wracking than that, right? It's like, okay, I want to know what's next, I want to have a solid idea. It's not going to happen this month. Well, probably not this month either. Definitely not this month. And yet for the year, it's more about, again, just clearing it out and letting it sit for a moment, yet letting it recalibrate, letting it air out, letting it, all of those things. But our tendency is to want to fill it up. So just a little heads up on that. It's really all also a very emotional year. There's stronger than usual emotions across the board. It's a year also where dreams can come true when you are ready, willing, and able to release and be open to these life altering changes. Okay. So, not to put too fine a color on it, this is a very transformative, very transitional year that can feel, I don't want to say it can feel hard, but it can feel hard. It can feel very um, challenging, and very, very much like you're kind of off center, right? You're off balance in some ways. Can be the feeling. I'm kind of one of those people who feels in things. And I don't know if that's a feeling you would have, but I'm throwing it out there. So, what I do love about numerology is that it does uh, offers all of us these key elements that are always in play, supporting us and offering us these opportunities. So, if we do know the themes and the energies that are available to us through numerology, through forecasts like this, just stuff that is like, oh yeah, how can I, this is what's happening. So how do I use it? How can I use the energy rather than the energy using me? So that is the basic idea around the power of knowing the framework that numerology can offer here. So with that said, your 5 month of May in your nine personal year. So, what can this freedom craving five energy bring to you in a nine personal year? Okay, drum roll, please. Brrrah. Change, change, a lot of change. So, that's what it can bring you. The five is a catalyst. It blows in with this frenetic, freedom seeking energy. It can kind of blow your socks off sometimes. It can also have the opposite effect. It could stun you into submission, and make you really scared. Those sorts of things. So always think about the point counterpoint that the energy is always going to bring, depending on how we integrate it into our experience. So yet also know that it brings in again fear, feelings of being stuck and restricted, tethered, like all of those things. So, ugh, sorry. Yet the beauty here, oh traverser of the nine personal year, is really worth the price of admission. So it's time to step up to it, face those fears. I often think about the five being a very much a practice of the Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy, that spends the entire movie running from the Wicked Witch of the West, being petrified and scared of her, finally, is in this confrontational situation and thinks that she's dead and gone, and she, throws the bucket of water, and it and the witch melts. I'm melting, right? I mean, all it took was a bucket of water. I mean, come on. So you got to think about the Wizard of Oz when you start really getting upset or really feeling that sense of fear and restriction. Just think about it as being the Wicked Witch of the West, and what is the bucket of water that needs to be thrown on it. So that is what's going to be coming up during this month. So you've got to kind of blow a hole through this, and there will be something that's been lingering around and needs to move right or left of center, right? The five is a catalytic energy, it moves things. So there can potentially be some movement here. It's kind of like when you were 5 years old and or so, right? And you started losing your baby teeth. Okay. So remember that front tooth that wiggled and wiggled and waggled for days, weeks, even. Oh my gosh, you pushed it with your tongue until it was just hanging there by this tiny thread. It would bleed sometimes. It was so sore. It was horrible, right? You're like, how could something this small hurt so much? And how could I be so afraid of, getting it out? And it wouldn't come out, right? It would not come out no matter how hard you tried, until your mom or dad tied a string around it, and snapped it out some other kind of way. They had to calm you down or distract you enough to finally pull that out, right? So I'm just saying you might have another such thing in your life that finally gets extracted this month. And oh, what a relief. Oh, what a relief it will be. And you get a visit from the tooth fairy. So score. I'm just saying that. I wish you did. I wish I could do that. I wish I could give you a visit from the tooth fairy. Sometimes everyone who's in their 9 personal year. I will do it symbolically or just in spirit. Okay. So you will have a visitation from the tooth fairy, just because you're doing a good job in your 9 personal year. Seriously, if you're allowing things to go, if you are in your groove where you are going, yes, I am open to these transitions, right? So around May 13th, particularly, take advantage of any situations that can help with some releasing that you are working on. Know that May can feel like you got a lot coming at you all at once. So be careful that matters kind of don't get out of hand. The five is known to offer a lot of bright and shiny objects, a lot of distractions, a lot of ways not to be very focused on something. So it really is not just to emphasize this part of it. It's not the time to start new ventures. It really isn't during your entire 9 personal year anyway, but particularly May is pretty volatile this way. It's a perfect time to explore new interests or take your time to process some new experiences and thoughts about your present self and your future self, kind of like seeing that timeline and in front of you and go, how do I want to get from here to there, particularly during the weeks of May 9th and May 18th. And I want to be really, really, really clear here, because some people kind of do the freak out when I'm like, it's not time to start something. And they're like, whoa, but what if I get a new job? What if I, have to move? Yes, those things can potentially be happening. Life goes on, right, in a 9 personal year. And yet sometimes what'll happen is, for instance, if you start a new job, it's a great thing. Go in all in with gusto. Oftentimes it's not the job that's going to last the test of time. Maybe, at the beginning of the year, you find something better, or, it's a bridge to getting you somewhere else. It could, I'm just using that as one example. So it's not that you just need to sit in a corner and just wait around for for next year. It is all about going through it, experiencing it, and allowing it to play out its natural organic course of things, right? So things coming into play during this time might be planting seeds that you will come back to and develop later, next year, later next year. So consider it kind of an exploratory kind of research time, to be logged and maybe saved for later. Understand that you will come across a lot of interesting opportunities this month, I hope, if you're out and about making it happen. Yet it's likely to take some effort and some analysis in order to figure out which ones are the best to pursue. So take your time, okay? Remember that this is the year to wrap things up, not necessarily to start them. Once again, I know I'm going to keep touching down on this quite a bit. I mean, I'm in my own 9 personal year this year, and I could, we could chat. So I'm going through it also. I'm going through it, and at this point, I am feeling those things of, oh, I really need something more solid to stand on right here to make me feel like I'm moving, in the right direction. And it's not really there. So I'm with you on this. And so I am also ready for what May brings to the table for all of us who are in this 9 personal year of transition. So with that in mind, though, you're going to need to maybe ignore, maybe say no thanks to some new things that might pop in with short term or kind of ill defined potential. If that comes to the table for you, don't be, I don't know, don't feel like you have to say yes just because it's an offer. So you can always say no. While it might be tempting in terms of what if, please trust your gut when it comes to taking the reins on anything that you would consider an absolutely new venture right now. It can also be a time, well, it's time to bring any projects to conclusion. And you can complete that with a champagne toast. I mean, you've been doing a project that is now finishing up, that sort of thing. It's not, it's a good thing. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a good thing. Something that is already in the works is finishing. So just remember that this really is a glorious, it's an intense year of transition. And transition is exactly what it sounds like. It's a process. It is not an event. And so the dictionary, and yes, I am still geeky enough and weird enough to go to the dictionary, and it defines transition as this: movement, passage, or change from one position, state, stage, subject, concept, etc., to another. Change. So during this year of culmination, which is what this is, we often need every minute the year brings us in order to process this and to walk through the steps that allow us to move from here to there. And I was thinking the other day, and I'm going to share this with you because I don't know if any of you listen to any of Alan Watts's recordings, if you've read any of his books. I'm sure you've seen quotes by Alan Watts. Um, he makes a beautiful observation that will serve you well as you traverse this year. He says this, he says, enlightenment or awakening is not the creation of a new state of affairs, but the recognition of what already is. That's a good one. I'm going to say it again. Enlightenment or awakening is not the creation of a new state of affairs, but the recognition of what already is. Because it's not that you have to have something absolutely brand new. It's just, how is something transmuting and transforming, right? And how do we simply allow ourselves to be present with what is? And I also, as I was working on this and thinking about this, I will give you a sidebar here, because for those of you who are who are familiar with Alan Watts, and even for those of you who aren't, I have to admit personally that I looked him up, which I do often for people, and I read a little bit about his life, not a lot. I'm not an expert on his life, and yet I have to admit I was quite taken aback when I read about him and his life. He was a very powerful spiritual teacher. He wrote books, lectured about spiritual concepts and living a spiritual life. And so many of his quotes are extremely profound and powerful. And then I read that he died in his mid 60s of alcohol related issues. And I'm thinking, wow, the paradox. And one could dismiss his teachings, right? Given that apparently they didn't do him much good, or I'm sure they did. And this is what I'm saying. This is why I'm calling on this right now. Is you'd think, well, they didn't do him any good. They didn't bring him to a state of peace that that where he didn't have to rely on alcohol to the level that it would be the direct cause of his death, of his demise. Uh, Someone we could be discouraged or judgmental about the whole spiritual thing, right? And I think that's part of this um, whole spiritual path, for lack of a better term. It's questioning these things. It's going through all of this and looking at situations like this and figuring out how for me personally, I felt a little judgmental about that when I first read it, to be very honest. And I was like, wow. Um, and so the reason I'm taking a moment to mention this is because the lesson of the nine of our nine personal year is on the deepest level. It's about forgiveness. It's forgiving people for being human. It's forgiving ourselves for our missteps. It's forgiveness when others do not measure up to our ideals and or our expectations. It's so many things in this arena, and so it's so much easier said than done, right? And so right now, the reason I brought that in is because that is a nine, the paradoxes, the very intriguing ways in which we bring these messages to each other. And there's never a perfect person, and there's never a perfect formulation of that, even though I feel that we often want that and expect that. Like we get very disappointed when our teachers or when someone we admire messes up or is human or does something stupid or yeah, what dies of alcoholism. So it's an interesting thing to just, I don't know, contemplate, to ponder as you're working with this energy of the nine. So you are learning to follow your internal compass rather than relying on some external GPS that may or may not be updated to the current operating system, right? It's about garnering the strength and resolve to release into this next phase. So in May, very much so, it's going to bring even more intensely these feelings of what if your life suddenly fell apart? What would be your biggest fear? Or is it falling apart and you're knee deep in your biggest fear right now? Or maybe you're holding on for dear life to the normal, right? To something that down deep is expired and needs to be let go of or transmuted in some way. So those are peak experiences that we can expect in May. So remember also that part of the crux of the nine personal year has to do with reaching your mind, body, and spirit out to support and help other people. The nine is the number of universal wisdom, and it offers great rewards to those who extend themselves selflessly, yeah, with boundaries, right? But selflessly to others. This is a wonderful year to give. and to get out there and do that. The fusion of the energy of the five for your month of May can be a wonderfully wild ride. Travel if you can, get off your beaten path, get your sexy back, whatever that means to you. And the five loves to feel good, loves to play, loves to get out there and live a little. So, what's transpiring right now is inevitable. The events and happenings this month can be a magical mixture of changing circumstances that are designed to bring you ever closer to the fulfillment of some of your fondest dreams and your heartfelt desires. So be open to possibility and welcome the inevitable. So that is your forecast for May. And if you are numerology curious, I do offer a lot of resources at feliciabender.com. I do private sessions, there's reports there, lots of free information about life path, all kinds of things. So if you are very interested to find out more, go to feliciabender.com. Otherwise, I will see you back here for your forecast for June at the end of this month.